Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Say, some of you are so far back there. Welcome to everyone in the sanctuary, and welcome to everyone at home that has invited us into their homes through the technology of live streaming. Thank you very much for being here and for allowing us to be there. Is there anyone here that is here for the very first time? Yay! That's awesome. That is wonderful. So for those of you two, that don't know me, my name is Reverend Dusty, and I am the spiritual director of this amazing, amazing community. We are a spiritual community that studies and practices the teachings of Ernest Holmes in the science of mind. We believe that there is one God, and that God is not some far outside of ourselves, distant God that doles out punishments, but is in fact God that is within us and surrounding us, and that is very benevolent and loving, and that it is eternal and always with us. And so we get together to celebrate God, to celebrate life, and we are so very glad that you've joined us.
Next thing I will do is the reading for the day. And the reading for today is by anthropologist Margaret Mead. And it goes thus: never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.
So welcome to those of you that may have just entered the sanctuary. The theme for the month of October has been, you asked for it, the answers to life's biggest questions. Those of you that are in the back can't see what I see here in the front. A bunch of really strange congregants have decided to join us this morning. I'm going to try to keep it together, but woo! So my talk title, maybe y'all should just stand up and wave just so that they know what I'm looking at. Oh my God. No respect. Trick or treatment? That's a good one. That's a good one. We call our prayers here, for those of you that don't know, spiritual mind treatment, so that's a great one. Trick or treatment. And the treatment they've just given me is... So anyway, I'm going to go back to the talk now. Is that all right with you guys? All right, so my talk title is Change the World. And Janelle did it perfectly with this big old question mark at the end, because as you notice on the slide, there is one. And as I sat this week with that question, a whole bunch of other questions came up for me. Like, should it? Can it? When? How? What's mine to do? So let's start with should it, shall we? Now, you don't have to look far in today's society to see what we have collectively manifested. Could I get an amen on that? Amen. Now, fear, judgment, resentment, despair, frustration, and anger are at the forefront, and they're made even more visible than ever before because of the fast-paced technology that we enjoy today, right? Many are experiencing lack and limitation, living lives in which their support structures are not in place. They have no homes, no food, no clean water, and no way to support themselves. War is raging. Many animals are treated with disrespect and are endangered. Kindness to each other is not the norm. And our environment is polluted in many different areas. Now, I think that most, if not all of us, would say that we cannot continue to live this way. That something has to change, and I believe, and our teaching, the science of mind philosophy, says that that change has to occur within us, within each of us, for us to see it on the outside. Now, Ernest Holmes says, in divine awakening, there seems to be an inner witness who remembers that we came from a heavenly state. There seems to be an answer from that great within that says the Father's house is filled with peace, power, and plenty. The universe is not limited. It is abundant, lavish, extravagant. Nothing can be taken from it. Nothing can be added to it. So if the universe is the presence of God, it is a present from God also, but if the universe is the presence of God and is already whole, perfect, and complete, just as it is, then it's high time that we awaken to that fact and to see beyond the veil of what our human perceptions seem to be telling us, to be willing to let loose any old patterns or old beliefs that no longer serve us, and to powerfully step into a heart-centered way of living. Violence only begets violence. Anger only begets anger. Resentment only begets resentment. We have to allow ourselves to consciously and consistently choose love, goodness, and kindness no matter what. No matter what seems to be going on, no matter who you think is right or wrong, choose love, goodness, and kindness. And when we continue to put our attention on love, goodness, and kindness, then we draw more of that into our lives and into the world as a whole. Okay, I think we can all agree it should. Yes? But can it? Now, I believe that it can. That despite our human perceptions that may say otherwise, that may be looking out at the world thinking that we have gotten no closer to ending world hunger, thinking that we have gotten no closer to peace on earth, thinking that we have gotten no closer to eradicating diseases such as cancer or mental illness, thinking that we have gotten no closer to honoring the divinity of God that is within each of us, thinking that we have gotten no closer to a world that works for all. But what I know is that things change, that they always change, and that they always will change. That we live in a universe of unlimited possibility, and that anything can happen. Anything can happen, anytime and anywhere. The Wright brothers, remember those guys? Orville and Wilbur. They had some different kind of names back then, didn't they? Or I'm sorry to anybody I really apologize. Where was my head? The Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, invented the plane December 17th, 1903. Now that date marked the first time that their invention actually flew at a steady speed, that it was carrying someone in it, and that it made a safe landing. They had a whole bunch of not so safe landings. It was piloted by Orville, and it flew at an altitude of 10 feet. And it flew approximately 120 feet before it made that safe landing. Widely recognized as the inventor of the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell was the son of a deaf mother. Bell's conceptual interest in sound waves led him to this brilliant realization that a human voice could be transmitted through space. And so he and his assistant, Thomas Watson, made that very first telephone call in 1876. Hello, Tom, you there? Get over here. That was what they said. Now, these men had a dream. They had a vision, an idea that would not leave them alone. Each of them called into being, called into reality, something that they envisioned And they called that into being by being focused singular-mindedly on its demonstration. Their inventions were first created in their imagination, and then they were created in form. They had a mental equivalent of what they wanted. They had a mental equivalent of what they wanted, despite the fact that there was nothing in the world at that time that said that this was even possible. They had that. They held on to that. They singularly focused their attention and attention on that. They were not deterred, and they created it. They created it out of nothing. And the ensuing evolution of travel and communication has been nothing but astounding since that time. Unlimited possibility is the presence of God. And God is everywhere at all times. There is no spot where God is not. So if unlimited possibility lives in the realm of invention and technology, then it has to live everywhere. Everywhere. Not too long ago, people by law were not allowed to marry outside of their religion, outside of their race, or outside of the accepted heterosexual idea of marriage. People were denied a basic right, that of loving whomever they loved and being allowed to do that publicly and legally. Now, while it did not happen overnight, each one of these barriers to a world that works for everyone was changed. Each one finally fell to the wayside as a belief that no longer served the global community. It no longer worked. People began to look inside their consciousness, began to open their heart, and began to let love lead. And by doing so, they created a space for acceptance and for respect. And as more and more people opened to the truth, then a tipping point finally occurred, and the world was changed. So it should. It can. But when? Now, the bottom line is that the time for change is right now. There is no time but the present. How many of us, and you don't have to out yourself, have ever heard ourselves saying, I will finally be happy when I lose some weight? We'll leave this relationship that is no longer serving me when I have somebody in the wings. We'll get a new job when the economy is better. We'll buy the house of my dreams when I win the lotto. We'll begin to treat my partner better when he or she begins to treat me better. Some of you are laughing. I can see you. Dr. Seuss, remember that guy? Dr. Seuss, in his book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, calls this the waiting place. And it's just a place for people who are just waiting. Waiting for a train to go, or a bus to come, or a plane to go, or the mail to come, or the rain to go, or the phone to ring, or the snow to snow, or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone is just waiting. Waiting for the fish to bite, or waiting for the wind to fly a kite, or waiting around for a Friday night, or waiting perhaps for their Uncle Jake, or a pot to boil, or a better break, or a string of pearls, or a pair of pants, or a wig with curls, or a second chance. Everybody is just waiting. And Dr. Seuss says it is the most miserable place. Miserable. Think about this. In our teaching, we believe that everything in the world of form is an effect. And that each effect or each thing or each relationship or each circumstance or each situation has a cause. Now, each cause is a thought or a feeling or a belief. Whether or not that thought, feeling, or belief is conscious or unconscious. An effect cannot cause or change another effect. It doesn't work that way. So we cannot simply move around the things in the world of form, move around those effects, and expect to get a different outcome. Effects can't change other effects. The bottom line is that for things to change in our own lives or for the world to change, there has to be a change in the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that we have, that we hold, both individually and collectively. We have to see the bigger picture. We have to expand our vision and enlarge our mental equivalent. We have to change where we are putting our attention. Moving our attention from what we perceive is wrong or what we perceive needs to be fixed and feeling our way into an outcome that excites us. Feeling our way into an outcome that twirls our skirt, that makes us happy, that makes us want to get up in the morning. We have to change our intentions from being against something to being for something, leaving lack and limitation out of the equation and standing firmly grounded in the truth of the allness of possibility. Michael Rahn and Elizabeth Arrett, in their book Shortcut to a Miracle, states, focus on the outcome and the feeling of the outcome rather than how long it is taking. See it as an incubation period rather than as a waiting period. The fertile soil for the miracle, of course, is spiritual soil, which contains all of the elements necessary for the perfect expression of your miracle. Your thinking provides the nourishment, and your emotional expectancy provides the environment. Does that make sense? So as long as you are focused on what you want rather than being focused on what you do not want, your miracle is on its way. Of that you can be sure. It is the way that it works. So yes, it should, and yes, it could. The time is now, but you may ask how. Inspired by Dr. Seuss. There are so many ways to change the world, both small and big. Each of them begins with a feeling, a vision, a desire, an inner urge that is seeking to be expressed. Each of them begins with imagination, with inspiration, with conscious intention and focused attention. In a short little TED Talk that I found as I was preparing for my talk, a little TED Talk by a photographer, Jonathan Klein, he says, images can change the world. So that's one way. Images can change the world. Now, images themselves don't change the world, but since the beginning of photography, images have evoked reactions in people, and these reactions have caused changes to occur. Often, images shine an uncompromising light on critical issues, images that transcend borders, transcend religions, images that provoke us to step up and to do something, in other words, to act. So, for example, many people credit the birth of our environmental movement to seeing this iconic photo of the planet from outer space. It was the first time that we had ever seen our world like this. The first time that we had ever experienced the vastness of the universe or recognized the smallness of the planet, perhaps even seeing it as somewhat fragile. People were inspired. People were inspired to do something about protecting it. People were inspired about becoming better stewards of it. And the world was changed. In the 1980s, the stigmatization, I said it perfectly in the first one. Anyway, the stigmatization of people with HIV/AIDS disease was an enormous barrier to even discussing it, let alone addressing it. Now, a simple act of kindness in 1987 by the most famous woman on the planet at that time, Princess Diana, was shown around the world. The image showed Princess Diana touching an HIV/AIDS infected child. This image did a great deal around the world, and most specifically in Europe, to change the stigmatization, allowing for compassion and understanding and healing. Our world was changed. Often it is suffering itself that brings forward the changes, because even the deepest darkness can reveal God's light. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt came from a very wealthy family. During the crash of the stock market in 1929, he could have walled himself off from the people who were struggling in the Great Depression. However, because of his experience with polio, his empathy for the hardship endured by average Americans inspired the New Deal, which was an array of social and economic programs that brought relief to millions of people. Our world was changed. Now, some changes are brought forth by the vision of one person. One person with a vision, one person that inspires other people. Think about Jesus and Buddha and Lao Tzu and Muhammad and Sri Krishna. Think about Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln and Winston Churchill and John Kennedy and Mikhail Gorbachev. Think about Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi and Susan B. Anthony and Rosa Parks and Mother Teresa. Think about Albert Einstein and Sir Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin and Galileo and Plato. Now, these are just a few of the million people that changed the world through their vision. And not while they are all quite famous right now, in the beginning they were ordinary people doing extraordinary things and changing the world because of their visions. There are many other people that we don't hear about that aren't as famous, that are changing the world in smaller and yet just as important, just as significant, just as wonderful ways. Having a vision and being in action from that vision will change the world. Today, as we look out at the world around us through our human eyes, we see the turmoil, the violence, the poverty, the homelessness, the disenfranchisement, and we are disheartened. However, the truth is that we can, even in the midst of this experience that we're having right now, know beyond a shadow of a doubt that each of us individually and collectively can actually co-create a world that works for everyone, a society that reflects our deepest values of wholeness, of inclusivity, of oneness, and of love. that while it might be hard to find a solution for every problem at the level of the problem, that there is absolutely a solution for every single problem on the spiritual side of life. So what is ours to do? Dr. Ernest Holmes says, when your belief in God is greater than your belief in the condition, a healing occurs. Let me say that again. When your belief in God is greater than the condition, than your belief in the condition, a healing occurs. If we want a healing, we have to understand that our belief in life, our belief in spirit, our belief in ourselves, our belief in goodness is greater than the conditions that we see around us. Now, in order to change the world, we have to begin here. We have to begin right here in the truth of who we are as spiritual beings. That what we have to embrace is that something greater than ourselves exists, and that we were created by it and out of it, and that golden thread of God stuff weaves itself throughout all of life, that it is in and around everything. The truth is that there is only one of us here. That while our human eyes might be telling us something different, that while our human eyes look out and see that there's a bunch of whole separate different expressions, that in truth, that we are all just the presence of God at our very core. So what we need to do is that we need to live from a context that is firmly grounded in this truth. Because when we do that, we will be able to look out at the world with the eyes of God. We will be able to look out at the world not from a place of me versus them, not from a place of us versus those other guys, but from the eyes of God, but from a higher view that shows us as a worldwide family, a global family, connected to each other. What we need to do is to live with a context that is firmly grounded in this truth. Because when we do, we will know that the entire planet, the entire cosmos is an expression of God. And that because we knew that, we would treat it differently. The land, the earth, the sea, and all of its inhabitants, we would treat from that context of love, from that context of respect, from that context of kindness, from that context of knowing our deep and abiding connection. Now, when we live with this context that is firmly grounded in the truth of who we are, we recognize that there is only one life, that life is God's life, and that each of us is living that life in our own unique way. And that no one way is any better than any other way. And that we would learn then to respect each other and to respect our own and others' own unique perspective. When we live from a context that is firmly grounded in this truth, we wish for everyone what we would wish for ourselves. We would know that which we do to others, we are actually doing to ourselves because there's only one of us here. And we would be 100% responsible for our choices and for our actions. When we live from a context that is firmly grounded in this truth, we recognize that what is within us is more important and more powerful than anything that is outside of us. We would understand that by radiating out into the world that which is already within us will draw unto itself that same thing back to us, that same thing to each other. If you want the world to be more loving, you have to be more loving. If you want the world to be more peaceful, we have to be more peaceful. It's really as simple as that. So this is the activity and the action that is demanded of us if we want to change the world. The bottom line is that as we transform our own individualized consciousness, that this then transforms the collective consciousness of our communities, of our nation, and of the world itself. We can change the world. And as Margaret Mead said, we are the only ones that can do so. And so it is. So I invite you to turn within, to close your outer eyes, and to allow your awareness of this power and presence that is within you to just expand. To know beyond a shadow of a doubt that each of us is that thing. That we were created by it, out of it. This amazing, benevolent, eternal energy that is everywhere at all times. An energy with no circumference and points of center everywhere, and I know that I am one of those points. And it can't just be true for me, it has to be true for all of us, and so I claim today that that is so. That right where each of us are, God is as peace, God is as joy, God is as abundance, God is as love, God is as freedom. And so I claim for each of us today, from that place of deep and abiding connection, that we have the ability to look within us, to let loose anything that does not look like God, that does not feel like God, to open our hearts and open our minds to an awareness of the presence of love, and to allow that to radiate out from us. To have a vision, and to bring that vision forward through the inspiration of others. To know that we can co-create a world that works for everyone. That it is well within our power to do so, that the allness of possibility is right where we are, and that anything can happen at any time. And so by the power of my voice, I call that vision forward. And I invite each of us to anchor it for ourselves and for each other and for the world by simply saying, and so it is, Amen.